Hi, my name is Mike Emard. I am going to provide a year in review for Azure Files. So we're going to go list off all the features that we've developed over the past year, and then I'm going to spend a little time talking about some new features that actually haven't quite shipped yet, but they will probably be out there by the time you watch this video. And then I'm going to give you some details on select features. So if you see something in bold, know that I'm going to have another slide on it coming up. So a lot of new things happened over the past year. I can't possibly tell you all of them, but I'm going to go over the big ones. So on-prem AD integration, including AES 256 for Kerberos. We are the recommended user profile storage now for WVD. So if you're using WVD, you should think about using Azure Files to store your user profiles. Azure Backup got snapshot management to general availability and added the ability to have long-term retention for snapshots. We added soft delete for shares. So what this is if you accidentally delete a share, we can easily bring that back. Advanced threat protection added support for Azure Files. So you can now look for abnormalities in access patterns using advanced threat protection and even do virus scanning looking for known hashes. There's previous version support for Azure File Sync. So users connecting through Azure File Sync can now view previous versions of their files. We increased the scale of Azure File Sync up to 100 million items. AZ Copy added ACL and timestamp support for files. So it used to be if you used AZ Copy, these things would be dropped as part of the copy process. Now AZ Copy will keep that file fidelity as you move files from on-prem to Azure or within Azure, across regions, or any of that. We added private endpoints for Azure Files and File Sync. So this makes it easy to have your storage account participate and be limited to a virtual network, whether that virtual network is only in Azure or it's something that spans on-prem and the cloud. We increased the max file size for premium files up to 4 terabytes. We have also added storage logging preview for Azure Files. So now you can actually enable this feature and you can see logs of when and who accessed what files, and you can push those logs over to Log Analytics or Event Hub and trigger actions to happen when certain things happen. All right, so now I'm going to talk about some of the freshest features. So if you watch this video as soon as it's released, you might not see this features out, but they're all coming very, very soon. So we're going to add the 4 terabyte max file size to the standard tier. Databox is adding ACL migration as well as timestamp migration as well. So if you use a Databox, a few months ago, you would have noticed that it will not preserve the ACLs and the timestamps when migrating into Azure Files, but it will very, very soon. We've added automated Store Simple migration. So Store Simple appliances won't be supported after December 2022, and we found a lot of customers wanting to move over to Azure File Sync from Store Simple. And so we've made a very easy to use automated process that you can actually launch through the Azure portal to move all your data over. We are adding SMB 311, including AES 256 encryption on the wire. We're adding SMB Multi-Channel, and we should have a public preview available for that very soon. We've been in private preview for a while here. We're adding new tiers, including cool files and hot files, and we're dropping the price for premium files. Robocopy can now migrate files to Azure File Sync, even if that File Sync server doesn't have enough data to hold all that information in the cache. And I'll go over more details of that a little bit later. We are adding NFS 4.1 shares. So not only will we be able to create SMB shares in Azure Files, but also NFS. For Azure File Sync, we're adding an automatic download sync policy. And I'll get into more details on that one as well. So let's jump into snapshot management. So snapshot management from Azure Backup will allow you to automate the snapshots that you take, and you can have a very flexible backup schedule. You can say, hey, I want to keep dailies and keep them for 30 days and monthlies and keep them for 24 months and yearlies for 10 years. You get a lot of flexibility in how you set up your schedule. You can do both file level and folder level restores. You can restore in place, or you can restore to an alternate location. It's a highly optimized restore process, especially when you think about how this works with Azure File Sync. It will automatically trigger sync to happen as it's restoring the files. And it also integrates with the soft delete feature I mentioned earlier. So if you enable backup, it will automatically go turn on soft delete for you to protect you from accidental deletion. So SMB multi-channel. So you can get 3 times more IOPS and throughput if you have a multi-threaded application on a multi-core machine. Now, this is from a single VM. Not only do you get this increased performance, which can range anywhere from 2x to 4x, you also get NIC redundancy, right? And so if one of your NICs fails, you'll still be online because we're using multiple NICs. So a lot of great things about SMB multi-channel. For new tiers and new pricing, today there's 2 tiers. There's standard and premium, right? We're rebranding our standard tier to transaction optimized. The pricing all stays the same for standard. For premium, we are about to drop our price from 24 cents to 16 cents. That's in US West prices, but that similar pricing will happen in all the data centers. We are also launching 2 more tiers. We are launching a hot tier at about 2.5 cents and a cool tier at 1.5 cents. So as you see here, as the price goes down for the gigabytes, the transaction price is going up. So you can save a lot of money if you have a cool workload with this cool tier, but don't want to try to put a hot workload on the cool tier because the transaction prices could end up making you spend even more money. All right, so let's talk about Robocopy's new feature that will actually wait for cloud tiering to occur. If you have a file sync server with only a 5 terabyte cache, and you want to move 50 terabytes into that 5 terabyte space, in the past you would have gotten an out of space error eventually. Robocopy would start moving stuff, but that local copy would be happening faster than Azure File Sync can tier it up to the cloud, and so eventually you would run out of space. And so people would have to move a little piece at a time and manually go watch this. Now you can set a flag with Robocopy to actually have Robocopy wait when it sees that the disk is full, let Azure File Sync tier some data out, and then Robocopy will pick back up and push data in. So you can start this process, say at the beginning of a long weekend, and watch it handle that migration of data without having to get involved. All right, NFS 401. So we are in private preview of NFS 401 right now. We'll be launching public preview very, very soon. It's built on the same native Azure storage platform as our SMB shares. Initially, you will create an SMB or an NFS share, so you won't be able to use both protocols on the same data. It will be for premium files only. You can provision a share as small as 100 gigs and as large as 100 terabytes, and that exactly matches what you can do with our premium SMB shares, and actually the performance characteristics are very similar in terms of the number of IOPS you're getting and the throughput you're getting. It's optimized for random read-write access, and you can scale up and down your capacity and performance as you need it. It's just a setting on the share. All right, Azure File Sync has added an automatic download policy. So the default policy remains the same, and what that will do is any changes that you make on a file sync server are immediately synced up to the Azure File Share, but they are not proactively synced down to other file sync servers. That's because we're not sure if you need the data at the other server or not, and we don't want to use bandwidth and incur egress charges if you don't need the data. But there's some cases where for a particular share, people on the other end are going to need to download that file. And so we want to proactively push it down. And so now on a per share and per server basis, you can enable changes to automatically sync down. And so what would happen in that case is the new file would actually go to file server 2 immediately, and it will be there in the morning when the people at the other location need the file. All right, you can learn a lot more by watching other videos from the team, and I appreciate your time.